Welcome to the Business Life of Husband and Wife podcast,
a show based on real experiences in business and life.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Business Life of Husband and Wife podcast. I'm Clint.
I'm Robyn.
And we are episode 22 here, and we are super excited. This is going to be our first YouTube channel show, and also our first Zoom call. Everything else you guys have seen will be on Apple and Spotify and iHeartRadio.
They haven't seen anything.
All of them. They've only heard my voice. They haven't seen me yet, so that's probably not good for either of us. But anyways, we're super excited. We have Diane and Larry Olsen on with us today, and we are going to be talking about basically leadership driven neurology from a couple's perspective though. So we're going to tweak some of the concepts that Larry has in his book, and we're going to get him to promote his book, and we're going to talk about that. And we're kind of going to dive into those kind of concepts, and they're going to be just tweaked a little bit from his book into how it works within a marriage and in a relationship. And then we're going to in a business. So without further ado, we're going to introduce you guys. So if you guys want to introduce yourselves for us, that'd be great.
You want me to start?
Yep, you can.
Okay.
Yeah. Welcome.
I'm Diane.
Yeah. Sometimes, right? Sometimes.
There you go.
So, I'm Larry, and very excited about the opportunity to talk to everybody. And I certainly thank you for listening. We'll make this worth your while, I'm sure, with Robyn and Clint at the helm. I'm the CEO and founder of a company called Aperneo, and we're into performance-driven neurology. Diane and I have been in business together since 1995.
Wow.
And we're going on our 27th year. It seems like only yesterday.
It does.
Anyway, that's who I am, and I'm sure we'll get to find out more about all of us here as we continue. And this is...
Hi, I'm Diane, and I actually work as the COO of the company, so running all of the business strategies and all the marketing and all of that stuff behind.
And I take all my direction from her.
And I give it freely.
Yes. Sometimes I don't even ask for it, but it's always valuable.
Oh, that's amazing.
So can you just explain the concept for everybody of performance-driven neurology?
Yeah, performance-driven neurology, what that basically means is everybody is attempting to improve it in some area of their life. And unfortunately, when you don't understand how your own brain works and what its role is in your performance, people have a tendency to work on their habits or work on their attitudes, their beliefs or expectations, which are all simply outcomes of something much more powerful than that. And that is the subconscious, which stores all of our beliefs relative to what we think is possible. So whenever we go to improve, we're always improving against what we already know. And at our best, what we already know is very limiting in the sense of what's possible for us. And so with performance-driven neurology, we help people overcome their skepticism to growth, because most of us don't understand that we're wired to make sure we stay who we are. Mm-hmm. And that is from a physiological, biological, and also psychological perspective. We can't wander around being very comfortable trying to be someone else. We know that. So what we don't know, though, is when we try to change, we're actually asking ourselves to be different than how we see ourselves now. And that creates resistance. It creates pushback. It creates doubt. And unfortunately, doubt leads to hesitation, and hesitation leads to failure. So performance-driven neurology is when you have the education to recognize, number one, how absolutely miraculous you are to begin with, because you don't get out of the womb unless you are friggin' amazing. We didn't get 100 billion neurons, each one capable of storing 3 to 5 million bits of information as a cosmic joke. We received that because there's a great expectation for us to be able to exceed our expectation at any time. So performance-driven neurology is when you actually watch yourself improve right in front of your own eyes. And that's what we're really looking for anyway, when we're trying to do anything different, whether it's losing weight or getting a promotion or making more money or having a better relationship, whatever it may be, is we don't realize that we've got to change our mind rather than trying to change our habits, our attitudes, our beliefs, or our expectations. And that's why we're all about this concept called vision. You know, what's the vision of the marriage? What's the vision of the business? What's the vision of getting up in the morning? What is the reasoning behind why we do what we do? And Simon Sinek really was the individual who kind of put that into the media to start with why, right? And Leaders Eat Last, and great speaker. But he really put an emphasis on how not only have a safe culture, but make sure that everybody's buying into what the vision of the organization is. Or what we do is we resist change. Even if the company wants to get better, even if I'm going to make more money, the only change people really like is the one they came up with themselves.
There we go. So that leads us to something it's not even part of my questions, but that's just when it comes to a marriage, how does that concept work? Because a lot of the times you're talking, you want to present your idea to your spouse, but it's not their idea, right? So we're trying to change their mind that maybe our idea is good. It could not be a good idea, and we need to be told that, right?
You bet.
So how does that concept work in a marriage of bringing that, mixing those ideas so that, your mindset isn't just keeping you in like a pigeonhole, basically, right? Fun on words for our last name for pigeon jokes, but.
Well, when you look at the word leadership to begin with, and both individuals in a relationship are the leaders of that relationship, and rather than fighting for supremacy, if you look at the L in leadership, it really is all about, in our leadership program anyway, listening. Most difficult thing for the human species to do, because as I'm talking to you right now, you're talking to yourself about trying to figure out what it is I'm saying, not necessarily based on what I'm sharing, but based on the experiences you've had, all stored neurologically in the cell of your brain up to this point in time. And if I continue before I ever do that, and the most important calamity for you, when I start to use terminology you don't understand, there's a disconnect.
Right.
I'm missing something. And so one of the things that I teach, but yet Diane has taught me, is the importance of listening. Because it doesn't matter how great your idea is, if you aren't listening to the ideas of others, then you really don't have the opportunity to showcase or get anybody behind your idea, no matter how great it is. And I
would agree. And I would bring it to, everyone says we're communicating, but communication is a two-person process. One person speaks, the other one needs to listen. It's not just speak, or just listen. Communication is a two-way process. So,
you bet.
Got to be listening, got to be talking, and throwing your information, your ideas out there and saying, hey, let's talk about this. What do you think about that? I think it's in some of the presentation also.
Yeah. And the other element that's so important is when you're listening to your spouse or your business partner, you're not listening for information that'll prove you right. That's selective listening. And that's what most people do. They only hear enough information or they look for a pause so they can jump in and share their information and idea. And so listening really requires a lot of humility. You've really got to put yourself second to the other one if you ever want to be first in their mind. And yet, unfortunately, the way we're designed is to get our point across. What are arguments about anyway? You're right, I'm wrong, or I'm wrong, you're right.
I'm usually right.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, if I've learned nothing else in our relationship. But that, I don't know if that answers the question, but I could do a whole day seminar on listening.
Right.
Alone.
That makes sense. No,
right?
that did answer the question. The other thing I was curious about too is you talked about like the 1,000 words, right? That you have in your vocabulary. Speaking on that, because that kind of like, there's a lot of nonverbal that goes on, right? So one of our concepts that we talk about is like a lot of you understand your nonverbal cues from your partner, like just the look. The look is always the dangerous one. You always know that you're getting that, right? Okay. So there's that. So we've had people come on and they've said there's a 7%, 38%, and 55% kind of rule that they have. 7% is what is actually said. And then what was it? 38%. I got to remember 38% is
your tone,
and then 55% is your actions. So do you have like, that was kind of one of the concepts kind of roughly like in your book in a different way with 1,000 words. Do you guys notice that, how that works? Like, is that huge for you guys in your relationship and how that works for like your mindsets? Like you notice things about each other?
It is, but there's research that just crushes those numbers.
Okay.
Because the point of 1,000 words, we beat up 1,000 words to death a day, unless we're taking a vocabulary class, and then we might add ostentatious to our vocabulary, even though somebody may not understand what it means. And yet, what they found is how many messages our body language and tone of voice send before we even open our mouth up. And if you look at it as a battle, and there's warriors against 1,000 words, how many messages does our body language and tone of voice send? It sends over 250,000. That's why Emerson said, "Who you are speaks so loud, I can't hear what you're saying." So what people really do is we read each other so deeply that then we look to see if the words match. And that's where we're attempting to be right about our intuition, our innate ability to survive. And you can't survive if you don't get along. And you can't get along if you don't know where someone is coming from and what their attitudes are. But as you mentioned before, when we're not getting along, just a look can turn the temperature down in this room. Diane has looks that the room is cold. And
then she has other loving looks.
And she has looks
Very
that
loving
warm
looks.
it right up. And I would say that 99% of the time, the room temperature is beautiful. But I know, and and anybody who's in any kind of a relationship knows when what we shared wasn't accepted. Even if the words are, "Oh, that's fascinating. Oh, what a great idea." And internally, what are we saying? They're insane. That'll never work. I can't wait to be able to convince them that my way is the way. And most people just get married. They don't ever talk about what's our vision for how we're going to raise children. What's our vision for how we want to communicate together? What's our vision for what would be a fun place to go on a vacation? It's just, will you? I will. Now I pronounce you. And then most relationships, now you start to try to figure it out without a vision.
And, and I would go back to even just how we develop language. You first have your receptiveness, which is your understanding. So you've got to understand. So you've got to be taking cues. You've got to be understanding words before you're ever able to express. So if you look at that from a listening perspective, you've got to be present. You've got to be taking that information in, the tone and everything, all of that, to be able to express something out. So it can go way back there.
Yeah, when I first met Diane, she was running a clinic. She's a speech pathologist. So she was dealing with head injury victims and helping them get back to being able to develop mentally the school tools and skills to be able to relate again, to be able to get back into mainstream society. And that's where we kind of connected based on the work that I was doing and what she was doing. And, the other thing in a partnership is you've got to get excited about being challenged. You have to look at that as, wow, we're actually going to grow, instead of, I want my way. And so we've come up with these little triggers to know when we're out of bounds, to know where we don't keep going in that direction. Sometimes even the trigger, I don't pay attention to it and I just go in that direction. So
Yeah.
it's not about being perfect, but it's about,
Clint can relate.
yeah,
I can stir the pot with the best of them.
yeah, right.
That's good.
So it's, you know, and the other thing too, it's Diane and I are really about collaboration. And the work we attempt in our relationship to model the principles that we offer when we work with companies. Otherwise, our children who are grown now and out of the nest, if you will, love the word hypocrite. And neither one of us like to be one. But there's times, you know, it's one thing when you're growing up and you say, when I have children, I will never say that to my kids. And then in a moment of stress, because it's stored subconsciously in your brain, all of the information since you popped out of the womb, everything you've ever heard, ever thought about, every feeling you've ever had is stored neurologically, never to be lost, never to be forgotten. And when it comes up is when situations trigger it.
Mhm.
And then we remember that situation or whatever. And so what happens when people get uptight, all of a sudden, what they swore they'd never said to their children come out. So we're not supposed to be perfect, as I mentioned earlier. And I think that's where you can have fun. And if you're not having fun in your relationship or your business,
Yeah.
what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Right?
Yeah,
It'll shorten your
100%.
lifespan.
Yeah. Every day needs to be fun.
Yes. Yes. There needs to be at least one laugh every day, right?
Maybe two.
Yeah.
There you go.
I like it.
Maybe too.
Well, you
In
guys,
my life, there needs to be two.
you can feel the great energy and
Yes.
see it just in the interaction between the two of you.
Mhm.
Oh.
You know, and if that wasn't going on, this would be a real short podcast. Trust me.
Well,
Episode,
dinner's
right?
ready. Gotta
Yeah.
go.
That's good.
So
Yeah.
How do you guys then
Oh,
create that
gosh.
vision? So we'll just step back into the word vision. Maybe just do a little promo on your book for us too. Just kind of give us some insight on the book and where everyone can find it quick. And then we'll talk about how you guys as a couple kind of set your guys' visions and how you guys operate that way.
And the difference between visions and goals, because I'm curious.
okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Super curious.
Yeah. Well, if you think of, well, the book is entitled Get a Vision and Live It. And it should be entitled, Are You Stuck? Would there be any value if you were unstuck in any area of your life? And yet it's Get a Vision and Live It. And so what it really does is it helps people recognize that we're not in a tree alone somewhere, that we need each other to live, to flourish, to enjoy, to grow. And what are we growing into is what a vision is. How we go about accomplishing the vision, it takes a lot of goals. You need to pull off a lot of goals to get the ultimate vision. But since we're all living right now, the challenge with a goal is you can't experience it until you accomplish it. Then you can go, yes. And then, you know, most organizations, they don't even let you do too much yesing before you're planning now for what's going to happen the next month or what our next goal is.
Mhm.
And so there's no really opportunity for celebration, and celebration is so critical. So vision is something that you not only have, and with Diane and I, it's like she mentioned earlier, it's a series of questions you ask each other. What do you enjoy doing? And instead of, well, I know you enjoy this, and I know you can't lead the witness when you ask these questions, even of yourself. And it might be, what would you like to enjoy if you can't find out too many things that you've been enjoying lately? But it's a series of questions you ask yourself to ultimately come up, like we do with a company, is what would the perfect organization look like, feel like, behave like? What kind of values would it operate from? Why would it operate from those values? And what would the ultimate outcome be if you were getting up and having difficulty sleeping at night because you're so excited to go to work? And that might be going to a computer and working virtually. You know, maybe you're you're back at it and going to an office, whatever the format is, what drives us, what fires us from a chemical perspective to get those endorphins flowing is the why, the vision, here's the outcome. And with Diane and I, it's looking forward to seeing each other. And when we're looking forward to seeing each other, what are we looking for in each other?
Mhm.
Where she made some comment that upset me, or I made a comment that upset her, that doesn't make you look forward. So rather than spending a lot of time on that, find out where that came from. You know, how was sleeping last night? Did you get any? You know what I mean? And when you're asking these questions, tone of voice is critical. You got to be coming from love. You have to do it when you're working with clients. You have to do it when you're working with each other. And the reason I say have to is everything else is a sacrifice. Everything else is judgmental. And whenever you start doing that, you alienate. So the book is all about how we think, how thinking affects our performance. It's written at a 6th grade level, by the way. And the reason that I was told to write it that way is not because people are stupid. They're brilliant. But if people have to try to figure out what it is you're saying, they lose interest really fast. And so you speak in pretty moderate terms, but the stories, it's a lot of stories in the book.
Great stories. Great stories.
And that's because of you. And that's, you know, and in the relationship, it's not so much what do you want to do this weekend is why do you want to do that this weekend? And we learned that as kids, didn't we? We had a ton of whys, and there was a reason for that, because we wanted to find out. We wanted to live an authentic life. We didn't want to be chasing something because everybody else is chasing it, or it's the thing to chase, or you'll be a bad person if you don't chase it, or whatever, or you'll be a great person if you do. Whatever the motivation is, if it's not coming from ourselves, then it's hard to stay excited. It's hard to sustain that growth and that enthusiasm. And that is kind of the litmus test, you know, are we enthusiastic? Are we enjoying it? Are you enjoying yourself right now?
I am so much.
Well, I felt bad because you've had to listen to me now for a few minutes.
You have forgotten that you can get Larry's book, find it on LarryOlsenLive.com. So,
which we would prefer over Amazon, because there's another seller out there who's selling our book. It's not us, so we can't sign it for you. We can't do any of that. So if you go to Amazon, you want to find Aperneo, Aperneo, as the seller. And it's kind of like there's the book, and then under that, it's got like used and new, and then they'll find it. But that way I know that you've purchased one, and I can write something in that for you.
Wonderful. We'll make sure we post the link.
Yeah, we'll post the link, and then we'll post the link as well for the audio book too, because I know that's what we did. I do a lot of audiobooks because we talked off air that even on the phone call that we drive quite a bit. So for us, audiobooks are handy. We got a 45-ish commute both ways, so it's gives us that hour and a half. We get some books in.
That's right. You guys are practicing a lot of listening then.
We try.
The effort's there. That's all that matters.
Oh, good. Good. So just one last point on the vision. Goals are going to happen at some point in time. Vision is something that you're attempting to accomplish. It's your ultimate why.
Okay.
And then what you want to do is you want to live it now. You don't want to wait till you get there. If you're looking for prosperity, more money, you need to live as if you have more money, but don't spend it. Just have the feeling that's associated. If you're going to be in love, you need to experience love now, because otherwise you're going to experience desperation, and you're going to go out and meet someone who always is also experiencing desperation, because someone who's really feeling good about themselves is not going to be attracted to someone who's desperate. And so what we have difficulty attracting to ourselves that which we're worthy of, because the biggest challenge most people face is they understand what they've become. They don't understand who they are.
Mhm.
And when
That
you
makes sense.
understand who you are, there's no competition anymore.
No.
Because in the history of man, sociologists have stated, and it's anywhere from 72 to 100 billion have stood upright in this thing called planet Earth. Currently, we're around 8 billion. But of all of those, not one has our fingerprint or genetic blueprint. So we're not supposed to be like anyone else. We're supposed to allow ourselves to kind of flourish in this thing, even in tough times. Even in when we are feeling a little desperate, we have to kind of get a kick out of ourselves and going, how can such a miraculous person as myself, where it's, you could win the lottery every day. That's how easy it would be to win the lottery compared to being alive. And, you know, if I spent time with you and what it takes to just to pop out of the womb, science can't call it anything other than a miracle because the odds are against it. But guess what? Each one of us made it. Each one of us fought those odds, and the gift that we got is called life. And that in itself should make us pumped. And yet we have been brought up to believe that you can't really be happy until. And, you know, that comes through commercialism. It comes through all the bad news in the media, because good news newspapers have gone out of business. People, for some reason, are motivated by trying to avoid fear. And in our book, we come from value, being driven by value instead of being driven by fear.
Mm-hmm.
Still today, 95% of corporations motivate by fear.
Wow.
School systems, you name it. So what do most of us motivating ourselves by?
Fear.
Fear.
Exactly. And it's not that a gun is being held to our head. Fear is losing something. So I'll be at work on time, not because I love going to work, because I don't want to be disrespected. I don't want to lose the respect that people have for me. That is so subtle, but that still is very restrictive relative to allowing ourselves to maximize our opportunities that we have right now, right in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
There we go. Okay, so we just got the notification that we're running out of our
We have a
Zoom
warning.
minutes. We got a warning.
Okay.
So
Okay.
we're gonna do the quick little ad read and stuff, and we'll just reset everything, and then we'll get you guys back on here in the next like 5 minutes.
Beautiful.
And then we'll do, and I've got a whole list of questions. So we'll just keep it recording. But so just so you guys kind of have a heads up where I want to kind of go and what Robyn and I kind of talked about. So we kind of want to get into the RAS, and we want to get
Okay.
into like how that, like why that's important for couples over time.
Okay.
Right. And
Absolutely.
then developing the scotoma. I think it was scotoma.
Scotoma.
Scotoma. Man,
Like the
You knew you were gonna butcher it.
I said I was gonna butcher it too. I was like, I'm gonna butcher this word so bad. I listened to it like 14 times, the first chapter again, just to get the word.
It's written phonetically.
Yeah, it doesn't read
Yeah.
well at all. No. Yeah.
Yeah.
You made a better attempt though than most that I've heard.
You did good.
And Robyn gives me a hard time all the time because she's like, it's written phonetically, and my brain just for some reason does not read things phonetically. It just reads
I
it
hear
how
ya.
it sounds.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Yep.
So-
That's
It
very
is what it
common.
is.
So maybe
It is
she'll
what
ask
it
that
is.
question and I won't
Okay.
ask it.
Okay. All
How
right.
are you gonna get better if you don't practice?
That's right.
There.
Right,
Yeah.
there we go.
Yeah, we'll call you right back. So
Okay. All
2
righty.
shakes.
Take care. Diane had said that she wanted to add something to the vision side of things.
Oh,
Yeah.
perfect.
I just wanted to give you an example how Larry and I use it in our life as a couple together. We have moved a lot, and so we've had to really develop our whole vision of where we're moving and what we're going to do when we're there. So we start asking ourselves, you know, what is it that we kind of want to have, a climate and whatnot. Then it's like, where would we want to live in that state? And what is it recreational wise? What is it we want to do as a couple? And so that, having to do that so many times through our life, it kind of becomes more of a natural process. And other areas of our marriage that we start asking those kind of questions.
Okay.
So
So that's like a very intentional then, right? You guys like have very intentional conversations. That's something we talk about quite a bit on our podcast, is just very intentional communication or conversations about whatever it might be at that time that we have to talk about, right?
yeah,
Because
yeah,
there's fluff conversations that we have and just have fun. And then there's very intentional ones, right?
I'm pretty intentional about which TV show I want to watch. Just
but
kidding.
I'll ask all the questions. Why? What is it about that TV show you like so much?
And then I
Sounds like our
change.
dynamic.
And then
I
change
always
it,
need to know why.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Robin's always got to know why. And I'm just like, I don't know. I just felt like it today.
I feel you, Robin. I feel you.
I need
Well,
to know
I
why
get-
of everything.
Don't give me that I don't know. You do too.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh boy, she's going to peel the onion on this one.
So that was
Yeah.
that's just another way of doing vision and whatnot, having those kind of.
Do
Yeah,
you
that's a
guys
great
do you
example.
guys set goals then too, like written goals with each other as well, or are they individualized?
Well, I mean, so we do write all of those down for like where we're moving, or we started playing pickleball like
wonderful.
everyone else. And it was like, I could have just gone off and played with people we just met, and Larry could have played with the dudes and done his own thing, but we were very intentional that this was a recreational thing we wanted to do together. And so we specifically make time that it is for each other. And we do say like, yeah, let's write down that, we'll play together at least 3 times a week or something like
Yeah.
that.
The only thing that wasn't in my vision is she's a far better pickleball player than I am. I'm still having difficulty getting over it, but I'm
It's the short term versus long term, right?
yeah, right. So I'm very proud of her, by the way. Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
So we're going to go back a bit and we're going to kind of dive into what got you guys to where you are now. I always like to kind of go back a little bit and just kind of give us your, like, what led you guys to your specific, where you are now, like what led you guys to your career and kind of where you're headed, and then how you kind of got to where you guys are now.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I had been recently divorced and was trying to be the best father I could and not living with the children. And I was having difficulty getting a job. And this is way back when O.J. Simpson was in his Bronco being tracked down. That was 1995. And since I couldn't get a job that would even pay enough to pay alimony and child support,
And one you liked.
and one I liked,
Yeah.
I just at one point decided, well, maybe you ought to go into business for yourself. And because I'd hire me. And I realized that, well, I don't know how to go into business for myself. I know nothing about it. And this is where people generally will go into another direction because they say, I don't know anything about it. What they don't know, which is so important, is what connects their spinal cord to their brain. And bear with me on this. It's called the reticular activating system. And we call it RAS. And what it does, and check this out, this is how amazing we are. Our brain can process over 32 trillion bits of information a second.
Oh my word.
Now, if we paid attention to that, it would just be white noise. We wouldn't be able to function. We couldn't see, we couldn't talk. It would just be all information overload. Mm-hmm. So our system is designed to screen everything out that we have not in advance determined as significant. And significant simply means it's on my mind. I don't know whether they'll like me when I go to that job interview, so I have to try really hard to be someone that they'll enjoy. Well, without knowing it, your reticular now is going to look for information about these people not liking you, because that's what you've made significant. You didn't say, I'm going to go in there, this is going to go extremely well. If I'm not quite sure about a question, I'm going to ask for some clarity. And I'm going to make this a really interesting adventure for myself. So whatever we say, we then look for. And it's like a good executive secretary. And CEO doesn't get all the mail. It just gets those pieces that are most important.
Mhm.
And this is interesting about how we operate as a human being. Whatever we're thinking about, we have declared as important. You first meet a new couple and you say, I don't find them very interesting. What kind of information are you now going to find for the rest of the evening?
Nothing.
Yeah,
You're not gonna
nothing
be
that's in,
interested by
right?
anything. And I was like, is that what they're thinking of us?
Yeah.
Is that why you're using that example?
No.
Yeah. So you got to be really careful about what's on your mind, because that's what you're going to draw towards you.
Yeah.
And telling yourself, I don't want to think about that, does not make it go away. Because I want our audience right now to not think about what I'm about to share. Whatever you do, repeat, don't you dare think about a white dog with black ears in a red doghouse. And everybody fails instantly because words trigger pictures.
Yep, I just failed. So
I'm like, you
there
saw
you go.
Snoopy?
Yeah.
Snoopy.
So think about that. So what should we be thinking about? The life that we want or the life that we don't want? How well it's going to go, or how all the chances that it might not work out. So when I decided to go into business for myself, not knowing anything about it, 2 weeks later, I'm taking my 5-year-old daughter to get shoes at the mall. And so what is our reticular open to? Shoes. You would think. But this is where we're so powerful, that we passed a bookstore called Barnes and Noble.
Mhm.
And there was on a tripod a book that said How to Succeed in Business Your First Time Out. I came to a stop. My daughter goes, Dad, there's no shoes in there. And I said, just a sec. And I expected that book to be written that day and dedicated to Larry Olsen. That book was written like 25 years before I saw it ago. And yet, why did I see it? Because I had to determine that I was going to go into business for myself. And now life is providing me all the information necessary for me to fulfill vision. It'll fulfill, the reticular will fulfill anything that you're thinking about. From, I can't believe they said that. That was very hurtful. Now, what kind of information are you going to continue to hear from that person? You're certainly not going to do well when you hear, I'm sorry, that was rude, because you're already working on what was hurtful. And so it's not that we're not going to get hurt. It's not that we're not going to have wonderful things happening. But one of the things you learn in the book, and we all learn in life, is circumstances don't define me. We define ourselves and then bring it to the circumstance. So therefore, it doesn't matter if something's going wrong or something's going right. It's just information. And what determines whether it's a value or threat is what's it got to do with the vision. And if it's something that's not going to allow us to get there, we're probably not going to take action on it. If something that we see is going to assist us in, and I bought the book, and then I got a phone call out of the blue saying, I heard you started your own business. I mean, it still raises the hairs on the back of my neck when I think about this. But the phone rings, and this guy I've never heard of says, is this Larry Olsen? I said, yeah, it is. And he goes, I heard you started your own business. And he said, I hear you have your own company. And at the time, my older daughter was living with me. So I had company. So I said, yes, I have my own company. Now, if I hadn't have first decided to go into business for myself, and this is the power of vision, I just said, no, I apologize. You're wrong. I don't have my own company. And that would have been the end of the phone call.
Mhm.
But instead, I said, yes. And he goes, well, I heard that you helped this organization be successful, and we're really successful now. I don't know why we'd need you. We got a pretty good team already. And I said, can I ask you a question? And he's ran this big company. And he said, sure. I said, I bet when you were growing up in your neighborhood and you were picking teams, you were the captain. He goes, well, how'd you know that? And I said, oh, just a hunch. And I said, so when you picked guys first or second to be on your team, how do you think they felt? He goes, oh, they felt great. And I go, how about the kid that got picked last? There was a pause. And he simply said, how do I get you into our company? Which tells you the character of this individual. And in a week later, became my first client. And they wanted to start right away, but I didn't have a program yet. So I needed to tell him that I was busy and I needed another week before we could get going. And that's how the company got started. And then to really have it take off, I met this woman on purpose with intention.
Yeah.
I'd even listed 10 qualities and characteristics I was looking for in someone, because an architect once told me, I said, I just can't seem to find anybody that's of any interest. And as we're having this conversation, we're in a bar. So, go figure. Anyway, he said, well, if I was going to build you a house, would you just give me 300 grand and say, let me know when it's ready? I said, absolutely not. He goes, well, what would you do? And I said, well, I'd tell you what I wanted. He goes, why? Well, because I'm going to live there. Duh. So that's how.
Lo and behold.
Yeah. And I just have to say, and so on my side, I'd kind of really just been floating through life and all was good. And then all of a sudden I ended up in a divorce and it's like, oh, I'm not really liking this. And then I had to start thinking about, well, what do I really want my life to be like? And, it's kind of hard to sift through all that information and figure it out. I had to put a Post-it note on my steering wheel that said, if it's to be, it's up to me. So I was like, okay, when someone says, gosh, can you do this? And I maybe don't have all the skills. I'm like, okay, it's up to me. Okay. So I say yes. And Larry's got a great thing in the program that with you high performance people with enthusiasm.
I look forward to new opportunity and seize it with enthusiasm and excitement.
Yeah. And that was totally me. And so as we started talking when we first met, I think it was 2 months after he'd started his business, and we kind of talked about our philosophies and our backgrounds. It was just such a match that it really was unbelievable. And within 10 minutes of meeting each other, we're showing each other pictures of our kids.
That's incredible.
So you guys just both kind of knew right when you met.
Yes.
Yeah. I did. She was a little skeptical. she's much more intelligent than I am, as you could probably have picked up already.
Oh, dork.
But again, that wouldn't have happened had I not asked myself, well, what are you really looking for? Someone who's indoors, someone who's outdoors, someone who's spiritual, someone who's not, someone who's taller than you, shorter than you, what age? I mean, what kind of activities do they enjoy? Instead of just going through it and saying, you know what, when we get together, I can change you, so it'll work out. Anybody who's listening, how's that going for you? So relationships are not the easiest thing in the world, and if they were, they wouldn't have the value. And I think that's something that people can't avoid the pain, because you can't really appreciate the joy. And that's why the struggle has to be embraced as much as the prosperity and what you receive as a result of it. Because it's the yin yang, it's the right wrong, it's the black white, it's all of these things that we have been all brought up to give failure a bad rap. And without it, there's no learning. Mm-hmm. Where failure really has been taught is you give up. instead of it's an opportunity to learn.
Mhm.
It's not the end. It's just that didn't work. And very important for everybody to pay attention to, never say, I don't work.
Yeah.
Say that didn't work and try another approach. Thomas Edison failed, and if you read his autobiography, over 10,000 times before the light bulb went on. But he knew before he even started, the light would go on. And he even wrote his failures down. Why? Yeah, he didn't want to repeat them. And so that, I think, is just such a powerful statement to someone who's sticking in there, regardless of what may happen. And I learned a great lesson when I met Diane. Diane is my third wife. We'll be married 25 years this September. And I don't think this is working out. And instead of taking a look at what am I bringing to the party, what have I done to create the relationship in the state it's in now, I'll find another one. And I did it with jobs as well.
Well, there's a nonverbal cue there.
Yeah.
Like we saw that
So
one.
it probably doesn't put me in the best light, but
No.
I wasn't a quick study, and it took me a while to realize there was a common denominator here. I mean, it happened in jobs, and it ultimately, I had a bet with a guy in 1983 who had the most jobs, and I beat him by one. He had 22, I had 23. And I always found a couple things that ended the job relationship, and that was I either wasn't getting paid enough or respected. So watch the reticular activating system now. What was I looking for in that next job? The opportunity not to be respected or paid enough. And then after a while, the common denominator, as Diane said, if it's to be, it's up to me. This is what's so powerful for all of us to constantly pay attention to. Am I changing the opportunity, or am I changing my mind? Because most people won't change their mind. Their mind's made up and they don't know it. And so we become very limiting in our choices. You haven't even tasted your favorite food yet. You just know what you like now. And when you think about that in a relationship, I don't even know what's possible for us, but I sure like what's going on now. And when it doesn't work, it takes a while sometimes for both of us to process it, to be wanting to answer questions and to go through it.
Sometimes.
But we have the vision that we know we will.
Yeah. So then, since starting your company in 1995, then Diane joining essentially a couple months in, how have things progressed and transitioned in the last couple decades?
Well,
Well,
it's been interesting.
There's been
Yeah. There've been a couple big ones.
Yeah, I think initially, we both kind of came into, oh, this is going to be my role, that's going to be your role, but it's never quite that defined, black and white, because there are things that Larry has some insights for that I didn't. There's some things Larry needs some insights. And so there had kind of been a morph of you're this, I'm this, to we're this.
Yeah.
And it has really been really fun through the not so great times when you own your own business to the times it's going great, because it's something our business pulls us back. It pulls us together. It pulls the creativity out of us. And both of us, that's a big thing in our life, is to have creativity. And so I think it's been really great how it's done that.
And it reminds me too of 2008. We had a beautiful home, totally remodeled, and the pool, it was just gorgeous, great neighborhood in Phoenix, Arizona. And we're putting in all new rock, and the dump truck is coming, and I got a phone call, and it was a series of them. And in 1 week, 95% of our income was gone, with businesses that were cutting back, and
Due to the housing
due to
bust.
the whole bust. And I'm wondering if that dump truck can put the gravel back into the dump truck. But that's not going to make a big enough difference. And this is when I realized the reason I was so cracked and devastated and not wanting to go into the house and tell Diane about this phone call was that I was trying to resuscitate an old vision that had carried us that far, but it was time to create a new one. And that's something really important for people to recognize. You know, some things may have given you all they can, and now it's time for new life. And we kind of reinvented ourselves. We had to do that again in March of 2000, when we had set up a university in a big corp company, and we were running it, and we had a 10-year, what we thought was a 10-year contract, and 4 years into it, March 13th, don't come back, COVID, we can't get together any longer. And so that, as a lot of people experienced, was a real time of reflection. Who am I? What am I doing? Why am I doing it?
Yep.
And it's, you know, and I really believe it was the re-inspiration. I'm not a real fan of this whole thing about the great resignation. I think a lot of people just realize they don't like what I'm doing or who I'm doing it with. And we did a lot of information out there in the media about be careful, because the grass is not greener on the other side. It's flowing and growing underneath you as long as you give it some sunshine and nurture it. And yet, if you have said, this isn't working for me, what's the reticular now? What kind of information is it going to provide you? You're not going to like the people anymore. You're not going to like the bosses. And you don't even realize it must have been a bad day. And for heaven's sakes, what are they going through? If you're going through all this, what are they going through? And none of us have a right to judge anybody until we know their story. And even then, we're glad we didn't judge them, because now we understand their behavior and why they're behaving the way they have.
And then we became intimately connected to Zoom after that.
Yeah. And Diane and I would spend sometimes 10 hours putting a seminar together with slides and with, you know, and it would be 20 minutes, it would take us 8-9 hours, and we get one viewer.
Well, we had a few more than one.
Would we have 3?
Maybe 5.
5.
Maybe 5.
But not consistently. But we kept doing them. We kept doing them. And I think that's the vision has got to be stronger than current reality, or current reality will win out every single time. Because there was a part of me that said, you know, I'm not going to put all this time and energy into this and nobody care. And that is really a silly statement to say, because if you're
say that though.
Pardon?
I say that too. Some days you're just like, this just doesn't seem worth it in your own head. You're like, what am I doing this for?
Yeah. And that's where you really got to go back to the vision, isn't it?
Yeah.
Why am I doing this? And if it's not a good why, maybe that's time to get one that is.
Reevaluate.
Yeah.
So let's just ask you guys how to explain for people watching, like how would you reevaluate your vision, and how would you reinvent your vision? What would your advice be for doing that, since you guys have done it a couple times?
Well, I think that there's a variety of ways to do it. One way that works well for me, because it's not always like words that work super for me, but pictures. And so, you know, I'm sure you've all heard of a vision board, but I would go spend some time, have a glass of wine, light a candle, and then I would start pulling out pictures of what that emotion brought. So, you know, I used to ride horses. I loved horses. So I'd find a horse because that brought out a really positive, good feeling for me. So I think that doing it visually, whether you're a drawer or you pull pictures out of a magazine, however, I think that's definitely one way to do it. Another way we do it is we just make sure we have like 2-3 hours where no one's going to contact us. And we sit down and start asking some questions. You know, what makes you feel great in business? what is it you would want to continue to do? And what are you doing just because we think it's the right thing to do, but it doesn't bring you passion?
Mhm.
And so that's another way of us just carving out that time to do that.
And one of the things everybody needs to be aware of is that while you're doing this nasty word called how is going to come to mind. And this is not the time to figure out whether you can pull it off, whether you're going to have a horse or not, whether or not you're going to have a job or not, whatever it is you're envisioning that isn't happening now. Is there's a tendency for us, because we've been brought up that way, because the how is the process. The how is very important, but not at the time you're building the vision, because it will limit you. It will make you compromise and you won't grow. Okay, you won't. I mean, I've learned a lot about being in business for myself after knowing zero about it, but I didn't let that keep me from saying yes. And I think that one thing I would ask your audience to do is start paying attention on how many things they say yes to versus how many things they say no to. Because by the time a child is about 7 years of age, they've heard over 250,000 no's and 20,000 yeses. So we get a little programmed to go quickly to that. No, that's not going to work. Now, I've really never liked that. And all of this procrastination that we come up with. So as Diane is really good at visualizing and imagining, and also has a very organized arm, which I certainly rely on. So she goes out of her way to make me look good, and has the humility to be okay with that. And I think that when she wants to get in front of people, I'll support that 100%, but I won't push it. You know, one thing I've learned, and I think it's in the book, is you can't talk anyone into high performance. You've just got to be able to ask the questions for them to discover for themselves that this is what I want to do. And that's what we do with companies, helping them develop their vision, is we never just let leadership get together and put a vision together. We make sure that we got representatives from every department, that if they're going to fight for their sanity, which we all do, it's the number one business we have, then people will go out of their way to make a bad plan work than the greatest plan in the world that they weren't a part of. So it's not whether the plan is good, can people get behind it, and do they see and experience the joy along the way of participating in something that's going to be greater than themselves. I think that's truly what really ignites and gives passion to all of us.
Yep, I agree. Totally.
No, totally agree.
That's great.
Yeah, I totally agree. So we're getting close to the end of the episode, everybody. Robyn's going to ask you, we always have a favorite question we always ask.
Oh.
This is kind of a fun
No
one.
pressure.
For us. It's no pressure. It's a little spontaneous. It's always fun.
Okay. Larry can go first.
Okay, I like that.
So if you could go back and give your younger self some advice, what would that be?
It would be to believe yourself worthy, to not allow others to tell you what you're capable of, how smart you are, whether you're good looking or not, and recognize that is immaterial. It's how good you feel about yourself that's going to break all the walls down and provide the life that's truly worth living.
I like that. That was nice.
Yeah,
that was
Thank
good.
you.
Fantastic.
I'm
that
glad
down.
I'm going
Now
second.
Yeah, now you got to follow this up.
For me, I think I would totally say exactly what Larry's saying. Believed in myself when I was younger, but also to remind myself to never lose the joy and excitement of a moment, of everything you're doing. You know, as a kid, you're running out to climb the tree, you're running out to play basketball with everybody, whatever it is. And I think as you get older and you get more responsibilities, that sometimes you can forget about that joy. Not that the joy is not there, but you forget to even look for that joy. So I would tell myself, just remember that to bring that joy and remember it.
And those of you that are in business together as husband and wife and or married or whatever the case may be, or have a good friend, you need to remind them too, because we'll forget, like Diane said, and what are we grateful for in this moment?
Yeah.
Because sometimes this stuff happens to all of us. And, I always believe that before you go to bed, you should tell yourself what you were most proud of that you did today. We did it with our children and then asked them what they were looking forward to tomorrow, so they could start to have that mindset where they could spend the day looking forward to something and what they could be proud of, because they knew their parent was going to ask them before they went to bed, what were you proud of? So their reticular is open all day long to these things that they can do, that they can come home and share. And sometimes when I go to bed at night, the only thing I can come up with is, well, Larry, you dressed yourself all by yourself today. And I'm telling you, that's worth more than, well, that didn't work and I got to do this tomorrow. And geez, what's going to happen if? And boy, I tell you, sleep is such an important element to having a great disposition.
I agree.
Thanks guys so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for accompanying us.
This was great. I mean, when you were talking about even like how you had that vision of you knew things were going to happen, you're progressing that way, and you got that phone call. It's the same thing for us right now, like talking to you guys. Like for us, we didn't expect to be on this phone call with, well, you guys are like light years ahead of us when it comes to the understanding of your topics and where you're at. Right. So for us, it's a privilege for us to like talk to you guys and be a part of this. And we think it's super fun because we get to pick your guys' brain, and technically it's free for us. Like we don't have to pay you to be here. So we really appreciate you guys coming on with us tonight. And it was awesome.
You.
I mean, there's lots and lots of value. So just remind everybody where they can get the book, where they can find you, and
where they can sign up.
Yeah, what they can sign up for, and where they can find you. Like what events you have coming up.
Well, they all of that information is, all they need to do is go to Larry Olsen Live. Olsen is Olsen, LarryOlsenLive.com. And they'll get more information than they might have been asking for. So
perfect.
We'll share all those links for everybody too on the website, and we'll have a link on our website as well, on our value added section. That'll link right to your website for the book and all that stuff as well, so that they can find you and find out where you're going to be and what you guys are up to. And like I said, thanks so much for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. You guys were fabulous to talk with.
And thank you guys for being who you are, because you're just infectious. It was fun.
Yeah.
Well, we try someday, right?
Every day. We have a good night's sleep.
That's right.
All right, good.
All right, have a good evening.
Yeah, you too. Thanks guys.
Okay,
bye-bye.